I used to believe that family was forever, that no matter what happened, the people who raised you and grew up beside you would always be there. I learned the hard way that sometimes family is just a word, one that can be shattered by a single lie. Let's call her Jade, my cousin, my childhood best friend. She was 4 years older than me, the daughter of my uncle, my mom's younger brother. Her mother had left when she was still little, and my uncle, a proud and self-reliant man, raised her alone. He never remarried, never even sought another relationship. Everything he did for her. He worked tirelessly to provide for her, and even saved up for her college tuition. But when she turned 18, things changed. My uncle, who had spent his entire life putting Jade first, told her it was time for her to stand on her own. He had given her every opportunity, but he had his own life to think about now, his retirement, his future. She disagreed. She thought he should continue supporting her indefinitely, that he owed her more. And so, the fights began. She spent more and more time at our house, running to my mother for sympathy after every argument. I kept my distance. I didn't see my uncle as the villain she made him out to be. I thought he was being fair. He had already done so much for her. If she wanted to continue her education, she should take responsibility for it. Then one day, Jade showed up unannounced. My parents were out, and for once she had no choice but to vent to me instead. I listened for a while, but eventually I told her the truth, that she was acting entitled, that it wasn't fair to expect her father to pay for her life forever, that she needed to grow up. She didn't take it well. She screamed, called me spoiled, accused me of never knowing what it was like to struggle. Then she stormed out, crying. I didn't know it at the time, but that conversation would change my life forever. The next morning, my parents woke me up with grave faces. My uncle and Jade were downstairs. I had no idea what was happening. But when I entered the room, Jade was already sobbing hysterically. Then, she said it. She accused me of sexually assaulting her the night before. My world stopped. I barely heard my uncle's voice as he explained how she had returned home inconsolable. How, after hours of crying, she finally told him what I had done. How devastated and ashamed she was. I tried to speak, but no one was listening. My uncle couldn't even look at me. My parents avoided my eyes. They believed her. My parents begged my uncle not to report it to the police. They promised to handle it. My dad turned to me, his face filled with something I can only describe as shame and disgust. And just like that, I became the villain. I was locked in my room. My parents didn't let me explain. They told me that my presence would only bring Jade more pain, that I had to leave, that I was no longer welcome in our home, and to make sure she never had to see me again, they gave her my entire college fund. 4 days later, I was put on a bus to live with a distant great-uncle. They didn't even say goodbye. My great-uncle was an angry, bitter man. He didn't know why I had been sent to live with him, but he knew it wasn't good. He didn't ask questions. He just treated me like a burden. I had nothing. No money, no education, no friends. For weeks, I was too numb to do anything, but I knew I couldn't stay with him forever. So I found a job, a low-paying, physically exhausting warehouse job. It wasn't much, but it was something. And with my first paycheck, I moved out. I got lucky. I found 2 roommates, guys my age, struggling just like me. We became friends, family even. Over the next 3 years, we worked hard, saved money, and climbed our way up. And through it all, not once did my family reach out. Then, 3 years later, I got an email from my father. Jade was dying. Pancreatic cancer. She had been battling it for months, and she had finally told the truth. My parents were sorry. They wanted to talk. They wanted me to come home. But there was one catch. They didn't want me to tell anyone what had happened. They begged me to stay silent, to let Jade rest in peace after 3 years of exile, after losing everything. They thought they could ask me for that? I told my friends everything. They were horrified, furious. They told me not to stay silent, that I had every right to clear my name, and they were right. Jade stole 3 years of my life. My parents let her. They threw me away like I was nothing. So, I told my father the truth. I was going public. His response, begging, pleading, calls, messages, suddenly they cared. Not about me, but about the shame of their betrayal being exposed. But it was too late. I posted everything, and the response was overwhelming. Friends, family, even people I had lost contact with, everyone reached out, offering support, apologizing for believing the lies. Jade lost everything. Her friends, her reputation. My parents were furious, accusing me of ruining their lives, but I didn't care. For the first time in years, I was free. Last weekend, I visited my hometown. Not for my parents, not for Jade, but for the people who truly cared. I stayed with an old friend. We laughed, reminisced. For the first time in years, I felt like I belonged again. I met with family members who had cut ties with my parents. They told me they never believed Jade, that they had been waiting for me to return. It was bittersweet, but it was closure. I'm not looking back. Not anymore. Jade may not have long left, but she got what she deserved. And as for my parents, they lost a son the moment they chose her lies over my truth. They just didn't realize it until now. Thank you for listening to my story. If you haven't subscribed yet, please do so and hit the notification bell for more real-life stories like this one. Because sometimes the truth needs to be heard, no matter how late it comes.